All right. So, as I was saying, we're opening the Innovators Roundtable tonight, and we have the privilege of welcoming Ed Gartin, a seasoned innovator whose journey in product development and retail is both extensive and global. Born in Japan and having lived overseas until the age of 14, Ed brings a unique international perspective to his work. With a foundation in graphic design, his early career was marked by pivotal roles in ad agencies and art departments, laying the groundwork for his expertise in transforming ideas into tangible products. Ed's career is a testament to the holistic understanding of the product life cycle, from the spark of ideation to the final placement on retail shelves. His frequent trips to China to oversee manufacturing processes underscore his hands-on approach to ensuring quality and innovation at every step. Before joining Bestway USA, a leading manufacturer of pool products and inflatable water sports equipment, Ed honed his skills in developing pool products and outdoor recreation items for Swimway. His tenure at Toys R Us provided him with invaluable insights into the retail world's inner workings, from private label and vendor relations to in-house design. Ed's contributions to the toy industry, including managing the Monopoly game series and managing the global product development department at Hasbro, highlight his deep understanding of what makes a product succeed in a competitive market. With over 20 years in the toy and game industry, Ed has not only contributed his expertise to major brands, but also channeled his passion into his own consulting firm, Paper Bag Creative. Through this venture, he continues to impact the industry by guiding new products from concept to market and fostering innovation across the board. His recent venture into leading a tabletop game course alongside April Mitchell shows his unwavering commitment to sharing knowledge and nurturing new talent in the field. So our format for the evening, we'll kick off with some questions I've been eager to ask Ed, after which we'll open the floor to audience questions. Feel free to type your queries into the chat at any time. With the help of Garth, we are our moderator for tonight. We aim to cover as many relevant questions as possible. We're aiming to keep the call in an hour and encourage everyone to stay until the end. Not only will Ed touch on his latest educational endeavor, but also I'll be sharing exciting news about the upcoming sessions and new Innovator Roundtable initiatives. So if you wouldn't mind, please join me in warmly welcoming Ed, a visionary who's traversed continents and industries, embodying the spirit of innovation. With his diverse roles and contributions, he's woven a rich fabric of knowledge and expertise, and we are so fortunate to learn from him tonight. So again, Ed, we can't thank you enough for being here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That was such a great introduction. I'm not sure my head's in the Zoom screen.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you liked it. It was really fascinating getting to learn a bit about you when I did my research. And I have, again, about 4 dozen questions, but I'm going to try to keep it limited tonight. We'll talk food at another time because I want to hear all about your Asian experiences there. But let's get started with a few questions on more sort of general topics regarding licensing. So to jump off the board here, let me see. Let's go with one second. I have my okay. So this is a general question, and I'm curious, sort of how somebody on the opposite side of the developer will view it. So if somebody presents to you something that's not exactly fully fleshed out aesthetically, but the concept is incredible, is that something that you'll still consider? For example, say if there's a part of the game that has a mechanism where 2 pieces have to connect, but maybe that person hasn't developed how that connecting mechanism works. will you sort of say, oh, that doesn't matter, we have a whole team that handles that sort of thing? Or do you want everything to be as like detailed and finished as possible?
So that's a great question. I think it also backs up to a little bit to sometimes people bring in illustrations of things that are like what you said.
Okay.
And what we're usually striving for when somebody has something that's highly innovative is we need a works like prototype. So
Mhm.
there's works like prototypes, which means that the mechanism and the device functions. And there's looks like prototypes, which means it looks like what you think or imagine it might be on the retail shelf. And then there's times when the works like and the looks like come together and it's a very functioning, highly developed prototype.
Mhm.
But at the minimum, if you have something that's highly innovative and very imaginative, you would love a works like prototype.
Okay.
If you say, listen, it's going to shoot lasers and it's going to do this and it's going to do that, but I'm not sure how that's going to happen. We love the imagination, but oftentimes manufacturers can't spend that amount of time to figure out what they're hoping you'll bring to them. The
Yep.
key to relationships with inventors is you guys are so creative. You're so amazing. You've come up with all these concepts. But then we also need you guys to work with someone or yourself to create a prototype of it to demonstrate that it's more than fantasy. And I
Mhm.
think that also speaks to like if it's patentable. So a lot of times we talk about patentable.
Yep.
One of the keys to patentable is it functionable, right? Does it function? Is it able to be used? It can't just be a theory. So you can't patent something that's like, oh, I think this might work.
Mm. Okay.
It has to be functional. And
Yeah.
so we
Okay.
operate kind of on the same way.
Okay, so in a sort of similar vein, what about videos? I know videos with the game industry are extremely important. Would somebody be taken less seriously if they don't have a bells and whistle type sizzle reel and it's just a sort of basic, maybe handheld camera that their kid took or something, and it shows the idea, it shows them playing the game, but it's not fancy, it doesn't have a soundtrack? What's you know, and I know they're acceptable, but I'm asking more specifically again, is that something that people in your position are going to kind of like look down on and say, I don't know how serious this developer is?
No. Uh,
Okay.
the key to a good sizzle video is to do the best you can, but the minimum requirement is that it's um, presentable, right? So you can hit play on it, you know how to make it happen. It's understandable, right? So when we're watching the video, we see how your toy or your game performs. Um, and it's communicable. So like as you're playing the video, you can say, this is my idea, this is how it works, this is why you should like it. If you show me a video that's 30 seconds of a kid playing with your product, having
Mhm.
a great time and laughing, I don't actually care if there's a soundtrack. Oftentimes I'm happier if there's not music because sometimes the music's too loud. But
Okay.
seeing those kids laugh and play and enjoy it does drive us more towards a yes than not seeing that, right?
So
And so
seeing that emotional reaction versus just like a finished high gloss.
yeah, I would rather see the real deal than
Mhm.
not see something because you didn't have the money, the time, the expertise to make something high gloss. Just shoot it
Right.
with your mobile phone, capture the moment. It'll go a long ways towards selling the idea.
Okay, that's awesome. So again, for the people that are just arriving, thank you for being here. I'm going to hit Ed with a couple of more general questions and then a few specific to Best to Best Way USA, and then we're going to open it up to the audience so you guys can all have a chance to be heard, hopefully time permitting. Okay, so the next question, a big one, follow up. When, how, what are your thoughts? Say
On
someone
follow-up,
has, yeah, so someone has submitted something they haven't heard back. And what would you suggest with in terms of follow-up in that scenario?
so I think actually follow-up starts during presentation. So when you present an idea, you should ask them kind of like, what's your timeline? How long does it take you to make a decision? When should I expect something back from you? And so you're establishing this area of expertise where you're saying, listen, I'm a professional and I just want to understand how you guys work so that I can take note of it and follow up at the appropriate time. And so if you
Yeah.
ask them, because everyone works differently, like I can get back to people in my current position in under a month. Um,
Okay.
most people, it can take a month to 3 months.
Wow. Okay. That's the first time I've actually heard a time frame be given.
Well,
That's really
it,
helpful, Ed.
it depends on their approval process. So I meet with the owner of the company every week,
Oh,
so
I
I
see.
can
Okay.
get through ideas pretty quickly. Some people can't meet with that person except once a month. It depends on the scale, the workload, and everything. Um,
Hmm.
but if you're asking up front and you're saying, well, how long does it take you? When should I expect that? What's the process? And they should be able to take you through, like, listen, we make decisions at the end of every month or every third Thursday or something like that. And you really want to get that information during the meeting,
Hmm.
because then everyone's different. So then you'll know exactly, like, oh, I met with company A and they said they can make a decision in 2 weeks. I'm going to give them an extra week. I'm going to give them 3, because you never know. But then I'm
Hmm.
going to get back to them. And that's appropriate because they told you that they can get this done in 2 weeks. But company B might say, listen, it takes us a month to 2 months. And if you
Yeah.
get back to them every 3 weeks over the course of 2 months, you might have hit them 2, maybe 3 times even, and they'll be a little annoyed. So I
Got
think
it.
it's so important to just ask them the question, when should I get back to you?
Okay. Now, what if somebody doesn't have the opportunity to actually speak to somebody? Say they've submitted through a portal. What would you recommend in that scenario? I know Bestway has a portal. So how does that work in terms of following up?
So different portals work sort of slightly differently. Our
Mhm.
portal is to gather the appropriate information to send you a non-disclosure agreement, a mutual non-disclosure agreement. So you're really just entering your contact information. Then we're going to send you an MNDA, and then we're going to talk about your thing. And I'll get on a Zoom call or a Teams meeting just like this, and you'll present your thing in real life. I don't want anyone to just send their things in without some sort of presentation. No one
Okay.
is more passionate about it than you do.
Yeah.
But other companies do have portals, and I just think that if you're submitting through a portal, give them a month. It
Okay.
indicates a high level of workload if they don't have the time to meet with everyone individually. And after a month, send them an email. No one is going to be like, no one's going to cut you off for an email. No one's going to say, I'm never talking to Jennifer again.
Yeah.
She's asking me when the thing's going to be reviewed.
Yeah.
You know, they'll politely reply, and if they can give you they'll take action, and if they can give you a timeline at that point, they will.
Yeah.
If they can't, they'll just say, hey, check back with me in 3 weeks, or feel free to check back, da da da. um, you're never really going to offend somebody or shut a door if you just reach out politely and say, hey, I submitted an item on this day and I was just wondering if you guys had a chance to look at it. But at minimum, give them a few weeks, like
Okay.
2 to 3 weeks to a month, and don't send emails every day. Don't go stalker on them.
Yes. Very important. So you mentioned showing it to the owner of the company, and I'm curious, with the experience that you have had in both the pool and recreation and the toy and games, who generally makes the final say? Is it always the owner?
No, and it's not even relative to scale, because Best Way is a multi-billion-dollar industry
Hmm.
company,
Yeah.
and it's really just sort of how the process is developed internally, and that's why I encourage people to ask, well, like, what's your process?
Okay.
When I was at Hasbro, if you were working with Tanya or Angus or any of the people that are there today, um, you would show them the item, and then they would take the item to the team that would be making the item. So maybe the Nerf team or maybe the games team. And that team director level would be making the decision if they were going to take the item in. You would never present that to the CEO or the president or anything like that. Um, Best Way, of course, has lots of people as well. I'm just
Yeah.
fortunate that I have direct access to the top of the heap. And that's one of the reasons I really love this company, is because they're making innovation the top priority, right? They're giving me access to
Nice.
the person that makes the decision. And when you make innovation number one priority for the person who's the CEO, you're really going to get some really good results out of that.
Oh, nice. Okay, so a couple more questions, and then again, we're gonna dive into some more Best Way specific questions. But when it comes to the timeline for toys and games from ideation to shelf, I know that can be kind of like outrageous. It seems, at least like a year or so is not unheard of. I think, in fact, it's actually the norm. So it's a two-parter here. So how does that compare to the water sports and pool float kind of arena? And is there anything that a developer can do to ensure that that process goes as quickly as possible?
Yeah, sure. So depending on the company that you're pitching to, they're oftentimes thinking 2 years out, right? And what I mean by
Wow.
2 years
Okay.
out is it's going to be on shelf in 2 years.
Wow.
So the way it works, just to really break it down for you guys, is let's say we're meeting right now, February, and you're showing me an item, but that item is a big box Q4 item.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've collected the item and I've committed to it, I might not be able to get the retailer's attention that I want to sell it to for a Q4, right? So for the last half of the year, this is a
Okay.
big item, right? This is over $100 item or something like that. I
Yeah.
may not be able to get their attention to sell it to them till
Yeah.
August, September, October, right?
That makes sense.
We've
Yeah.
committed to it. We've signed the contract. In the contract, we'll tell you kind of just like the sales presentation timeline, the retail shelf timeline, and then we'll start making a prototype based on your sketches or based on your prototype. We'll, finalize costing, we'll make packaging, and all these things take time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the quickest I've seen a company go from ideation to shelf is 6 months.
Yeah.
And that was in a printable board game.
Huh.
Because if you're going to make tooling for a plastic item, there's 45 days. And then you're going to do
Okay.
a test shot, and that's 2 weeks. And then you're going to do a second test shot. And we call those engineering pilots and final engineering pilots and sign off samples. And so now you've got like 5 months right in there, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Before we get to a functional toy. And
Yeah.
then you're going to finalize packaging. And it's working in collaboration, but sometimes when the final toy comes out, if you have unique packaging, you want to change it, or that's when you want to do the photo shoot. So now that I have the toy, I didn't want to do the photo shoot with the prototype for some reason. Now I can do the photo shoot, then I can make the packaging. And you can kind of see how 6 months can go quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the
Yeah.
same time, internally, marketing's thinking about how to present your item, sales is thinking about how to pitch your item, pitch decks are made, meetings are set up with retailers. And even if you're like, oh, I'd love to meet with you in March, you're beholden to your customer, which is the retailer, right? So they have seasons as well. And when
Got
they're
it.
thinking about signing up for something, they're thinking about it 1 year in advance. So if they're in 24, they're thinking about on shelf in 25.
Got it. Okay.
And you want to meet with them in October 24, you might sign up for the item in 23, if that makes sense. And that's why we say 2 years away, because you're working the item up. The simplest of items you can really fast track, but most of the items that we're signing with inventors have some complexity to them. There's innovation, there's things to
Yeah.
figure. And so that's about the timeline. And everything within that, if you think about like shipping and everything, you could kind of understand why from January to January or October to October for the retailers, because once they sign up for it, we go into production, they ship it, they warehouse it, they distribute it. There's a lot more time behind it than maybe we all imagine.
I think you're right on that. There's that wishful thinking that it can just happen like overnight, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so when you've met with somebody, you like their product, you're on board, you want to sign them, you want to give them a deal. What if, and I've heard you talk about this in a previous podcast, they have 300 other ideas. At what point will you ask them, can we see some of your other ideas? Or is it basically like an open door at that point, once you've licensed a deal with them, that they can just present anytime they want? Or how do you go about that, dealing with people that you've worked with?
So different inventor relations people in different companies operate differently, but most of us operate on a pretty open calendar Zoom schedule. And then we meet at certain shows. So we might go to Nuremberg, we might go to Toy Fair, we might go to, all these different shows, Mojo Nation, People Who Play Innovation, just all the shows that are happening in this industry. If I've met with you and you're a professional inventor and you've really demonstrated your abilities, I will send you a meeting invite that allows you to book it anytime
Wow.
up to 2 months.
Wow.
So
That's
if
great.
I met with somebody today, we're talking about a product, I'm super excited. I sent him a meeting invite. He booked something for tomorrow because he's got more ideas.
Okay.
So, I
That's
mean,
helpful.
literally 24 hours later, he wants to show me new stuff.
That's great. That's so helpful. Okay. So let's get in a little bit into sort of what's current now. So can you talk a little bit about trends in games and outdoor recreation?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things I think we should all think about is we're all doing our comp shopping and we're looking at things on shelf. And just as I said a second ago, those things on shelf were a thought or a contract or something a year to 2 years ago. So don't always try and identify the trend from on shelf, right? It's almost more important to look at the shelf to confirm what you saw a year ago. And you should go out, into the public, or there's a million websites, let's say Pinterest, let's say TikTok, let's say Instagram. There's also just trend sites like Social Blade and Google Trends, and really go out there and kind of gather your own data based on what you are building or creating. If you're into water toys, then like look what's happening now, and then look what's happening, start to keep track of it. And over time, if you're doing that and you're making notes on it, you'll start to understand where you're most effective, where you can be most effective. Because me telling it to you today won't get it. You need to keep feeding that beast. So I'm gonna also teach you to fish, but then I'll give you the fish. So start looking. And if you want to look for like licenses, and you say, oh, I want to make something for a licensed manufacturer, like check on the back of packages, see who's making things, but then go into like gift cards, go into like wrapping paper, go into like some of these perennials. And those are strong licenses because they spend a lot of money to get them in there. If you look at like backpacks, that's an in and out. So that's a hot license right now, right? And it's a quick turn because it's cut and sew. But right now, we've got a lot of stuff going on with outdoor recreation, right? It's really fun. People coming out of COVID want to get outside again. They want to do things they enjoy. So that's a growing segment, like outdoor recreational play, whether it's in games or some other types of toys. Getting kids and people outside is really growing, just in general, like in a bigger picture.
Yeah.
In board games, we've seen cards take a surge, right? So card games have made a little bit of a bounce back here. People are looking for them. Party games is waning a little bit. Like we've done a lot of party games,
Okay.
but family games is pretty strong, and preschool is perennially strong. Like people seem to always try and find these younger kid games to entertain the kids, whether it's the grandmothers or it's
Okay.
birthday parties or something like that. From a toy aspect, we're seeing a lot of innovation, right? We're not seeing a lot of like necessarily like iteration. So,
Mm.
what we saw before is people would take one thing and they'd kind of like bolt on another idea and they'd relaunch that thing. A classic example is 6 years of Tickle Me Elmo. Um, it did different things, and every year it did a little different thing. But now things are becoming a lot more innovative. And even the latest Furby, we might look to Furby and say, well, that's Furby, it was out before, but it's so much more innovative than it was when it came out last time. And so people are looking for like something really whiz bang when they shop at that price point.
Hmm.
Uh, and they're also a little price sensitive. So try to make things that are 39 and down. And if you want it to be a year-round item, try to get like around the $20 mark. And you can do this by comp shopping and seeing like items in the retail space and
Yeah.
say, what does that thing cost? Is it like my thing? That's probably what my thing will cost.
Got it. Okay. What about the number or average or range of items that a company will produce every year or look to license every year? What does that look like for like the pool company for Bestway or for maybe Hasbro? How does that work?
So that's actually a super complicated question.
Okay.
So in the
We
big
can
picture,
pass.
I'll take them all.
Okay.
In the toy industry, most companies operate through invention, right? So inventors are super important to the toy and game community. Games more so, right? So a lot of games come from the outside and go in. Um, each company is a little different in the percentage of invention that they take in and produce. And the way to know how much invention they kind of do is to look at their brands. So a
Mhm.
company like Hasbro that has really strong perennial brands has to have a strong design team internally to maintain those brands. So when you think about Barbie, when you think about Hot Wheels, when you think about Monopoly, when you think about some of these perennial brands, Now, it's not to say that inventors aren't making submissions and some of those being incorporated into those product lines.
Yeah.
Then if you look at a company that has a lot of turnover brands, right? So a lot of the brands that we know today have probably been around 20 years.
Hmm.
And then some brands are being built, right? So some of the brands are being built back on licensing, and then a few of them are being built based on marketing. But there are a lot of companies out there that just have turnover brands, right? They have brands that they just need to keep pumping into, and they
Okay.
can use more inventors than the companies that maybe are of larger scale. Um, However, if I say to you that a company is a $30 million company and 40% of their product line is invention, and I say to you a company is $1 billion company and 10% of their product line is invention, it's a relative scale, right? So 10% of
Yes,
the product line might be more items than 40% of the other product line.
I hear you.
So
Yes.
it really isn't about whether or not they're taking 1% or 50%. It's really just about fit and research. So if you do the research and your product is a great fit for a company, you pitch it to them and let them decide. Never decide on your
Okay.
own that it's not going to go. But
Okay.
also don't walk into a pool company with a bicycle,
Yeah.
like, so do
Make
your,
room for this. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Okay. Okay, so two last quick questions about best way. So one on the submission form, it asks about whether the item has IP already and has it been shown to another company. Can you speak to those two details?
sure. Yeah. Um, in toys and games, right? The way to dominate a space is in order for us to be able to protect it.
Okay.
So it's not a limiter. Like if you have an idea that's not patented, not provisionally patented, not anything like that, we still want to see it. We want to see all the great ideas. But if we see that it has IP already, we get excited, right? Because we're like, this inventor is serious. They've done some, legwork. They've done some additional work, and you do not need to spend for a patent. But if you can spend for a provisional patent, right, then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
protect your item for a year while you shop it around. A
Yeah.
provisional patent establishes a date. And so if you do decide to patent it, that patent goes back to your provisionally patented date. And so
Yeah.
it protects it while you shop it around. If you take an item and you show it to a bunch of people, or it becomes public in some way, if you show it at a trade show, if you show it somewhere, it may no longer be patentable, right? Because once you've shown the item to the public, it's an uphill
Mhm.
battle to get it to patent, right? We think about patents, and patents are new, new or novel, right? Unique, non-obvious, right? And functional, but they're also like, it hasn't been out in the public.
Yeah.
So we ask, like, have you shown this to anyone else? Because we also want to get a sense of like, are there other people in on this? Are there other people competing for this? But also we want to know, have you been to a trade show and tried to like present it at a trade show booth? Well, then we know it's not probably patentable anymore.
That's so helpful. Okay, that's great, Ed. Thank you so much. So, last question, and then we'll get to the audience here. But can you talk a little bit about what Best Way is what maybe their direction is, or what they're kind of on the market for? What we could maybe work to sort of present to them?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
Oh, terrific.
Um, so Bestway is an outdoor recreational products company that focuses on family fun. And we operate in the beach, lake, backyard, and pool, right? So if you have a product that's a backyard game, that's great for us. If you have a product that's, a pool game, that's great for us. If you have a product that crosses those play spaces, right? So we think about those as play spaces. You're playing at the beach, you're playing at the lake, you're playing at the pool. It's very easy to see that there might be a product that could go across all three of those play spaces. And that is fantastic for us. Um, we are looking for water toys. We're looking for floats, unique though. Adding a theme to a ring, right? So I've got this inflatable ring, but it's a
Mhm.
donut. We're
Yeah.
not really looking for theming of items. We're looking for
Okay.
innovation, right?
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can, we can turn a ring into a donut, an inflatable
Yeah.
ring into a donut, real easy, right?
Yeah.
We really want the innovation. if you have a mechanical device, but you don't know what the product is, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Okay,
We might, you might say,
that's
listen, I've got
interesting.
this thing that can blow up an inflatable in 2 seconds. And we're like, let's talk about it. We'll figure out what the product is. But it's really about things that operate in those play spaces. They can be floats, they can be pool toys, they can be, different things that maybe I'm not even imagining.
Yeah.
Because we make constant air inflatables, we make inflatable kayaks, we inflatable SUPs, above ground pools, inflatable hot tubs, water toys, dive masks. I mean, just everything that you use to play in those spaces, that's what we do. And that's
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
Okay, that's super helpful. Ed, thank you so much. This has been so informative already. I want to see, does anyone have any questions? I know there's a couple in the chat. I see Patty. Did you just raise your hand? And
Yeah.
also, please, before we get to Patty, you can use that more function, go to reactions, and then in the, there's a raise your hand gesture, and that can help put you in line there. So Patty, what do you have to
Well,
ask?
thank you. I was just wondering, as far as like, if I have a game that I think more focuses on simple strategy.
Yeah.
I envision it with younger kids, maybe 9-year-olds with a family. I don't think the pieces, like say checkers,
Yep.
that's been around forever and you can't patent that. But could you, if yours is just a little bit different, could you say copyright different dice or different cards? Do you recommend copywriting those, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that highlights, so I'm a game inventor myself. And just in transparency with games, it's so hard to patent anything or to protect anything that way. I've licensed a number of games right over the years, and I've neither provisionally patented or patented any of those things. And I don't actually expect the game companies to patent those things. I've got unique game mechanics. I've got things like that. With games, it's actually much more difficult to patent anything. As you say, you can copyright stuff. I'm not sure that, I believe this is how I operate, that everyone is operating from a good place.
Mhm.
And so I present my games and the games that I do with April to companies with no protection, no copyright, no trademark, no anything.
Okay.
And when I find a bad actor, I just don't go back to that place.
Okay.
But
So
I think
you
with
don't
games,
think that,
more trouble than it's worth.
right, okay, so
There's
you
no-
don't think the company's gonna look down on you for not copywriting it, is basically.
100% not going to look down on you. There's
Okay.
no company out there that's going to look down on you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Tryman?
Hi, Ed, hi John.
Hi.
Thank you. I have this toy company that I reached to, and they said no on my first ideas, but then I asked feedback, and then they said, "Can you make a toy in this specific category?" And then I said yes, and then they said they only make one-time payment. They only do one-time payment, and that's what. No, they didn't say they only. I mean, they said that's what they're familiar with, and I said what I'm familiar with is licensing, but we can talk more after I've shown you the product, because it doesn't matter if you don't like the product. So fast forward, I have made the product, and actually the one I'm talking to, I searched him on the internet. He's the founding director apparently of the toy company, and
Yeah.
he wants to talk to me next week, and he reminded me that he's only familiar with the one-time down payment. Now my question is, how do I, because this is actually my first time talking with someone, and it's a good problem. I'm really excited about it, but I don't know how to take the, I mean, I don't know how to price my product at a one-time payment, or how to lead the conversation into licensing, or just him considering licensing or whatnot?
Yeah, I think I understand the challenge. So you presented an item to the guy, the gentleman in question, and he recognized your creativity and he said, I'm not interested in this item, but would you operate as a contractor to make me this other item that I'm interested in doing? And so he said, what I'd like to do is pay you a project price for doing that. And so that's his one-time payment. It's his project price. So he doesn't want to pay you by the hour because he's not sure how long it's going to take. But you can negotiate everything, right? Everything in life is
Yeah.
negotiable. So you say, okay, I agree to your project price, or you suggest a project price, but I would also like X. And you can say, I agree to this price. It's actually a little bit less than I normally do, but I'm happy to accept that price if you'll also give me 2% of sales, net sales. And so now you haven't done a licensing contract. You've
Yeah.
done a contractor consultant contract, but the billings of, like, you're saying, okay, I'll accept whatever. Let's say the number is $50. It better not be. But,
Yeah.
and then you're saying this percentage of sales, right? And the way I generally look at project pricing is I say, how complicated is it for me? I choose what my hourly wage should be, right? So you can pick whatever your hourly wage is. And if you don't know how to do that, you can say, okay, what would I like to make in a year? You divide that by 2080. So this big number that I want to make in a year, if I did this all the time, you divide that by 2080, you get your hourly price. And then you self-estimate how long you think it'll take, plus 25%. And that's how I do project pricing.
Oh, I see. I see. Thank you for that.
Like real
Guide.
math.
That's
Where did
amazing.
the
That was
280?
huge.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Serena.
Thank you.
Where did the number 280 come from? Again, sorry.
40 hours in a week, 52 weeks in a year. That gives you 2,080 billable hours.
Okay. 2080. Okay. Okay.
And so if you were working a year for this guy at an hourly wage, that would be that number.
Yeah.
So then you can back into what your hourly wage might be. Sometimes it's hard for people to say, oh, I should make $25 or I should make $150 or I should make whatever. Well, if you say to yourself, I think I would be comfortable with $100,000 a year, then divide that by 2,080 and see what that number is. The extra 25% is for, it's not because you're just being mean. It's because there's,
Yeah.
right? There's material costs, there's unplanned costs, there's shipping costs, there's other things, right? And that's what the extra percentage is for. You calculate your time and then you add for like incidentals.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ed. That's such terrific, like actual, equation that we can put to use. So thank you for that. Edgar.
Hello, Ed.
Good to see you again, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've been enjoying your
One of
posts on
the-
LinkedIn.
One of the ways I think I have grown from one year to the next is that, and I think this happens to a lot of inventors, is that we spend maybe too much time in our first invention, in our first creation. And this one, of course, because we don't have the experience, it probably is not a success. It probably will never make it to the market. So what I've learned and confirm is this, if this is true, it is that can we like pitch something, quote unquote, on a napkin, a napkin version, and then see if it gets a reaction, and then if it does, then spend the next 3-4 weeks working on this instead of spending endless hours investing in something that might not have legs. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, a fantastic question, Edgar. So yes, but not exactly as you describe it. So
Okay.
first off, if you guys are only working on one thing at a time, please, please, please have a notebook where you write the rest of your ideas because they'll evaporate. And also, please don't work on one idea at a time. I bet that most of us are more effective and more creative if we work on this thing and then we skip over to that thing and then we skip back and we move around, because a lot of times we find that we get a block if we just focus on the one thing. And if you have 3 things going, maybe you only get one thing to the finish, but the other things might influence the final item.
Yes, 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 yes.
I see a lot of inventors book time with me. I give them 30 minutes. They have one item. And then after about 8 minutes, I'm like, well, I guess we're done. Okay, great. And it's not to my benefit and it's not to your benefit to only see one item, right? Because I don't understand what you're capable of oftentimes with one item. And you have a better chance of licensing something, right? It's a numbers game with more than one item. I agree that oftentimes our first item is not our most well thought out item. Sometimes we get lucky and knock one out of the park. It doesn't mean that it's terrible. It means that you need to put it on the shelf and come back to it, right? So you're going to develop skills. And I think Edgar's a great example of this, where he's made something else, he's made something else, and he's continuing to evolve. He's operating in one category and then he's moving to another category and he's coming back and forth. And he's really like thinking about things in their entirety. And I know a couple of you guys are doing that. I know Andrew's done that as well. That's great, right? Mix it up. Allow all the creative juices to flow. And if you are like me, I find I'm very time constrained. Write everything down. Write all the ideas down, because you spend so much time trying to keep them in your head that it blocks the other ideas from coming in, right? You know, you do this in the course of a day where you're like, oh, I got to remember to take the car in and get that inspection done. I got to remember to get the car inspection done. And you're so focused on that and you keep repeating that nothing else is coming in. So that. Now, on the idea of bringing in a napkin sketch, it doesn't work as well as it used to, right? And the reason it used to work is because there were far fewer of us inventors, and most of the inventors already had an established relationship with the inventor relations person. So if you've successfully placed items with that company in the past, you've built a trust relationship with them, you can bring them something that's less thought out, a little less thought out, to get some feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're just getting started out, I think you need to at least get it to a drawing. Would be awesome if you can get it to a works-like prototype that demonstrates it's something that can work, if it's highly innovative, you know. Would love to see a video. I'm a fan of pitch decks. I love it when you guys put the things together in a little PowerPoint, like 5 slides. If you don't know what should be in a pitch deck, April and I spoke about this in the beginning of the year. It's one of the videos we did where we talked about pitch decks. But I just think that everything you can do to improve your chances of success are in your benefit without leveraging or borrowing money or taking a loan out on your house or selling your car. Please, please, please don't do those things. It's just so risky, and it does work out for a few people, and we love those people and we raise them up as heroes. But lots of people just go into debt doing that, and I don't think it's necessary. There's this thing called kit bashing, where you just go buy a toy and you kind of break it apart, and you buy another toy and you kind of break it apart and you put the toys together to demonstrate what you're trying to do. That's absolutely acceptable. You know, as long as it's an innovative new thing, right? You use the parts and pieces to make something new, not to just change the face on a plush doll or something.
And Ed, talking about the mixing things up, I don't know why, but lately I've been hitting on a lot of I've been creating a lot of collectible ideas. What do you think of that sector of collectible ideas?
Now you're asking a second question, Edgar. You jumped in line.
Right.
So
Yeah.
here's my take on collectible ideas. Collectibles work best when they have a license behind them.
Um,
And if they don't have a license behind them, they need a lot of marketing.
yeah.
If a company is signing up for your collectible without a license that needs to spend a lot of marketing, it's going to be a bit of a more uphill battle than if it works without a license. That's my opinion. Opinion only.
And the
Thank
last
you.
one, Neil.
Oh, Edgar, you're so bad. All right,
The last one.
Edgar,
I
message
just-
me and I'll answer. Message me on LinkedIn. I'll answer your question.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Edgar.
much.
Those were great questions. Wes,
What happened?
Yeah,
There he
yeah.
is.
Hello.
Hi.
welcome.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, Ed, it's great. You've opened my mind to an idea. You mentioned sales presentation and retail placement. It cleared up the idea that as an inventor, you're trying to license, and I had this monovision on the licensee. You've actually shown me that they are in turn thinking about the retailers and acceptance and interest from them, and the retailer is thinking about the public has to buy it from the retail. So it's like a chain of custody. I'm thinking now of your innovation. To you, it obviously has value, and you're thinking it just has to get out in the market. But in reality, you need to convince the licensee of the value that they can then sell to the retailer, who's going to then sell to the public. So how can the inventor help the licensee come to that value conclusion? If it's not somehow, or in other words, from your experience, how is the process normally done? It's as if when we think of an idea, to us, it's like self-evident that it's valuable and the public wants it, but to the licensee, maybe not so much. So how can you help them come to that conclusion?
So research, right? I'm always about, like, I say that to everybody all day. I'm going to print t-shirts up that say research. But if you look at something, so I'm going to use a hypothetical, right? And so we'll pick something from the background of Jennifer. So we're doing rubber chickens, right? And we're like, rubber chickens are hilarious. Everybody loves rubber chickens. Right now, that's an emotional plea, right? There's no data behind that, right? So how would I prove that people love rubber chickens? Now, in today's day and age, maybe I'd go onto YouTube and I'd find a bunch of videos of rubber chickens or people playing with rubber chickens. And I'd look at the number of views and I'd say 60 rubber chicken videos have 8 million views, right? Or I might go out into the public and I might say, oh my God, every other product on a retail shelf is a rubber chicken. But in fact, this might tell the person, I don't want to get into rubber chickens because there's so much competition in that space, right? So if you can flip it around and demonstrate that there's what we call a white space opportunity where nobody's in it, it's an opportunity that's untapped, I might be more excited about it, right? So if you can show trend, if you can show that there's a consumer, and if you can show that there's a market opportunity, and there's lots of ways to do this, you're going to get me excited, right? And so if you make a product, so we're going to jump from rubber chickens. If you make a product that somehow works with bicycles, and then you say, this many kids own this many bicycles in America, I now know I have a customer base of the number you just gave me for your product that works with bicycles, right? So your product is adjacent to this other product that you can demonstrate the sales of. And you can just Google, like, how many kids ride bicycles in whatever, North America, in America, you know, and maybe the number's a little bit wrong, but it'll be close. If you can show me that there's a market potential to an idea, I'm much more excited. And again, like April and I talked about pitch decks, and we sort of talked about this thing that we call the teaser, or in that video, we call it the tee up, right? So if you can tee this up for me, if you can set the stage where then I watch your video, so you set the stage for it, and then I watch your video and I say, oh my God, that item would be great on bicycles, right? I can see that. And then you give me like just basically, what is your product? And then, you know, just really try and like give it that sandwich idea where it's like, here's good information, here's the meat of the product, here's more good information. You're much more likely to have success. And it's demonstrating the opportunity. We can understand the innovation from your presentation, from your product, your prototype, your video. The next step is to demonstrate the opportunity.
That is fabulous, Ed. Thank you. Great question, Wesley. Thank you for that. let's go to Andrew, and then I'll ask, Celeste has one more that pertains to Ed's new course. So we'll hear about that, and then we'll start to wrap up because it is coming up on the hour. So Andrew?
Yes, hello Ed, this is fantastic.
Hey, Andrew, it's good to see you again.
Great, thank you. So, I've been going to shows, talking to people, and what happens often is I talk to someone, they've been in business maybe 20, 30 years, or maybe 5 years, but they're established, like they're actually making sales, but it's either sometimes a one or two person company with like 8 games, or they're like a bigger company, but they've never worked with an outside inventor. So, do you have any tips for inventors who are approaching companies that are established but haven't accepted outside ideas? And it's mainly when you start to get to contract negotiations, when they love everything, and then numbers start going in and minimum guarantees, and like I wish there was just a let's go together to this website and it's all ready for us to work together, and we just hit a couple buttons and everything is done.
Me too. Unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated. So when we talk about contracts, and I don't know how many people have gotten to that level yet, but what Andrew just cited is sometimes there's an advance against sales. So there's a check that's written to the inventor, and that's basically recoupable. So that's repaid against sales. And the reason oftentimes inventors will ask for that is because they want the company to have skin in the game, to encourage them to move towards producing the product to get that money back, right? And it's usually not a lot of money to the company, but it's enough money that it's meaningful to the inventor, and and then it's enough money that somebody might want to get that back. As an example, for me, right? So I'm just always pulling back the curtain on everything. I usually ask for 5K. And I'm an established inventor with a reputation. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but remember, that's recoupable. So that means you don't get any money till they repay the 5K.
Mm-hmm.
So your sales on that product have to exceed 5K in royalties before you get your first check. I'm highly confident about my ideas, so I don't want to wait a year for the first check. I like to get checks, even if they're small checks. I've got one item that pays me $900 every 3 months, but you know what? $900 is money, right? And it's paid for a vacation house for my whole family in North Carolina. It's just like it all adds up, right? So that advance is recoupable. So if you ask for a big money, right, it's kind of only hurting the negotiation and slowing down your checks. For some items, you may get that advance and it's never repaid in full. You do not have to pay the balance of that, right? It was the company's job to recoup that money. But, they might drop your item and they'd just be like, well, whatever, it's a wash, right? The other thing that Andrew talked about, can we go a couple minutes long, Jennifer? We started late.
Ed, we could go to tomorrow if you want. I'm down.
Okay. The other thing that Andrew talked about is a minimum guarantee. So if your item is such that the company can predict what they might be able to sell it, they say, oh yeah, we've got similar items that we sold in the past and we have customers that take those items. They might be able to give you a quantity that they could sell per year of your item. And they might be willing to say, we will guarantee at minimum that we'll sell this number, right? For the smaller companies, I pass on this because I want them to license the item. I could be more humble about this. I'm a little bit arrogant, but I have lots of ideas and I want as many of those ideas as I can to see the light of day. And I don't want to lose an opportunity over being stuck on a minimum guarantee. I do like the advance because the advance is helping me to pay for shows. I use those advances to pay for the next show. And I've got friends that do that as well. But the minimum guarantee, if it's a smaller company, I don't want them to be scared. I want them to sign up, right? So just me, I'm not telling you to do this, but I pass on it for smaller companies. And then I ask the larger companies where we can meet on that. Like, what's the number that we can both feel comfortable in that? So if I was working with a top tier company like Spin Master, Mattel, Hasbro, I would ask for it. If I'm working with a company that hasn't been in the inventing licensing thing before, I would feel like that's probably an area where they're going to be nervous. We don't know how many we're going to sell. We just signed up to pay Andrew a certain amount of money, whether we sell it or not, because the minimum they're going to, I don't know if we want to do this, right? They're going to be nervous at every negotiation. So that might not be something that I do. The royalty percentage, the advance, sure. This is personal opinion, but if I flex on anything, it'll be the minimum guarantee because I'm confident in my item and I'm confident it'll sell, right? As far as like all the other stuff, like you're saying, like, you know, I wish there was a website that we could go and get all the things. There are very, very qualified lawyers out there that are on LinkedIn that are, you know, out there. And, you know, sometimes you just want to encourage a company to talk to those people or talk to those people yourself if you're financially able, right? And to get advice. But I will oftentimes, if I'm meeting with somebody for the first time and trying to get them to license something, just sort of hope for the best. Because if you're the first person, it's either going to go really, really well for you or not. And I don't want to be anybody's guinea pig because there's so many toy companies out there, so many game companies out there. But somebody has to be first. And God bless you, Andrew, for being that.
That's fantastic. And yeah, it's just how do you keep friendly when there's a contract? That's and you've answered good questions. It would be great if there was a go-to person who both of us could identify as a lawyer who does this all the time. So that's really good feedback. Thank you.
There are a number of lawyers out there. And if you message me, I'll message you some.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Ed. You're the best. Thank you.
Anyone
What a
else?
great question. Thanks, Ed. Celeste, did you want to ask your question? You can give me a thumbs up or unmute yourself or a no. Okay. Celeste, again, joining us from South Africa. So it's about 3 in the morning. So Celeste was asking about your course, Ed. Can you tell us a little bit more about your course, some details, when it's happening? Is it Zoom only? Is there what the fee might be? That sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're super excited. We've partnered up with Azelle Wade, the toy coach.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you may know her.
Yeah.
April and I have gotten to a place in our bandwidth where we just can't manage it all ourselves. I was trying to run a website and do all sorts of things, and the website didn't work out as planned and blah, blah, blah. So Azelle has really taken it to the next level for us. What we're going to do for this course is we are going to record 10 modules that will have multiple lessons within each module. And you can do it at one of the things that we found. So we were taking feedback from everyone, and we found that one of the challenges for people was we wanted to meet at a certain time, and they might live in South Africa. One person lived in Germany, and we were all basing it on North American time zones. And so the person from Germany was getting up and staying up at 3 a.m. and you know, just same as yourself. And so what we're doing is we're migrating to video so that everyone can do it at a time that's appropriate for them. And we aren't really like impacting their schedule as negatively. It also allows us to reach more people. Before we could only accept really 20 people. That was the most that we could like kind of manage as far as like all the stuff behind the scenes. So it'll allow more people to participate. And then April and I are talking about all sorts of add-ons that we can do for those people. So we want to do Q&As. We've done those for all the courses in the past. We expect that we'll be doing those again. And that's live, like Ask Me Anything like we're doing now. And it's almost exactly like this. People ask anything. Edgar can attest to this. Andrew can attest to this. I answer as honestly as I can, and I answer everything I can. There's nothing that I'm gatekeeping or behind the curtain. I give you all the information. And especially in that course, I'll give you even more information within the confines of that course. And as far as like what it costs, I don't know at the moment. I know that it'll be, so a lot of those courses are over $1,000, and I never wanted to be that. The last course was, you would think that we would, but we sort of lost money on that just based on time invested. So I think it'll be a little bit more than 500, but certainly a lot less than 1,000. And the price is actually, you guys won't believe this, but I put April in charge of all the finance stuff and I just do the fun stuff. And it's been really good relationship that way. And I love her for it. She does all the follow-up. She sends all the emails. She just lets me be the fun guy. Even in the course, I just get to be the fun guy. I've written a lot of the content, but during the course, she does a lot of the emails and the legwork, which I mean, I can't thank her enough for. So I don't have all the contract details because she hasn't told me. But I feel like it'll be very accessible for most people. And I mean, Edgar, would you say it's a great value of the course?
Yes, yes, Ed. It was a great course.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
And Andrew can speak to it as well. Like we try to over deliver on value. Right, Andrew?
Yes, absolutely. It's because Ed and April have really been in the trenches. Anytime you can speak to someone who has had so many experiences in so many different types of companies. Ed, I don't know how much longer it would take for Ed to tell you all the companies he's either worked for or worked with. So you get all that knowledge when you ask your questions.
Yeah. And what's really beautiful about our cooperation, April and mine, is I mentored April when she was first starting out, when she had her first game, and I mentored her for a few years. And then we took all the things that we were talking about and we put them into that course. So it was really great because April was coming up and she was learning and we were measuring what worked based on her success. And today she's highly successful. And, you know, it was kind of like having a guinea pig as we look back on it, but at the time that wasn't my intent. But I would talk to her, you know, she would call me wherever I was working. You know, she'd say, hey, can we talk? And we schedule a time when I wasn't working that we could talk and, you know, do all these things. And then we took all of that information and put it into the course. And we're trying to put the things that she was, you know, she tested and learned. The most successful things went into the course. And of course, the things that don't work, they aren't in there, right? And also it's migrating. So when we first started the course, we were really big on sell sheets. I still like a sell sheet, but we're really big on pitch decks today because people have moved to that and videos. And if I have to pick only one, I pick a video because most of us are pitching via Zoom. And to be able to demonstrate the play pattern on video is so impactful. So for me, it kind of goes video, pitch deck, sell sheet. I love all of them, but if I can't do all of them, I do the video for sure. And so like a lot of that we're communicating during the course. We're giving people handouts. We're giving people a workbook. So this will be the first class that gets a workbook with all the notes and extra activities. We kind of learned that from the last class where I was sending out notes via email afterwards to help. So everything we're doing in this course is kind of, you know, trying to benefit you guys. It may seem like we're creating competitors, but we see this as a buffet, not a pie. So there's more than enough for everybody. So there can be lots of us game designers and toy designers out there, and we'll just all rise with the tide. So.
That's wonderful, Ed. You used my favorite quote there. So just to follow up to that, Patty has asked, what about contract negotiations? Is that something you cover in the course as well?
It's a good question. Where is Patty? Patty's right there. Patty, can we talk about that a little more right here? So like when you say contract negotiation, what is the part that you find challenging? Oh,
Unmute yourself, Patty.
Sorry. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I guess what I was envisioning is that I'm an Eventbrite student,
Okay.
and that's been wonderful. I guess what I'm wondering is if in your course, if I were to pitch to a company and they sent back, they said, I get to the point where, yes, I could have a contract, this, you know, and then you're saying, okay, well, you know, talking about the advances or the minimum distributions and that, if they sent you a contract, would you be willing to go over that contract? Yes, you want this. No, you don't want that. Or make sure you have this in the contract, that kind of thing.
The person you want to do that is a lawyer.
Okay.
Even if I was willing to do it, I wouldn't encourage you to hire me to do it.
Okay.
You
Even
would-
as a first blush, like something to take to the lawyer?
Well, I'm gonna explain something more. I'm gonna give you a little bit more behind it, but in all situations where you're negotiating contracts, writing contracts, doing something that's that level of involvement, if you can afford a lawyer, that's the best person. Unlike what I've seen, and some people have told me they're doing, Chat GPT is not the best lawyer. Please don't use Chat GPT to review your contract, or any of the other AI language learning models out there. So here's the thing. Here's how it goes. You bring me an item, and I love the item. We're going to get back on the phone and we're going to discuss terms, right? So we're going to call that deal terms. And we're going to go through the things we just talked about. So we're going to go through markets, right? So where am I selling? We're going to go through royalties. We're going to go through, which is the percentage you get of sales. And you get that on net sales. So net sales is what everyone takes home. Gross sales is what gets paid, but then overhead and all the allowances and everything comes out of it. And it's just like your paycheck. Before you get your paycheck, all this stuff comes out of it. So you're like, but I make $80,000 a year and I'm rich. And then when you get your paycheck, you're like, I think I make 40, right? Because Uncle Sam took his 25%, or, you know, all those things.
Right.
So it comes out of net, because that's what, when you get your money out of net, you're getting your money paid to you by the company, right? That's the money the company received. And so they're paying you a percentage of what they received, right? So it's net sales. And that's the royalty. Advances, right? So maybe you're like, okay, I'd like to have a little money up front, just for whatever reason, right? And all the things that we just talked about, we're going to negotiate that. That's called terms, right? I'm going to want an exclusive, right? So I want to be the only person selling this, because otherwise, if you put me in competition with somebody, it's going to be really hard for me, right?
Right.
So everybody's going to say, can I get an exclusive? And you can say, all right, great. Let's do a 3-year contract. So you'll have a 3-year exclusive. And then let's talk about renewals, right? So that's called the term.
Okay.
So there's a term to contracts. The term may be forever, right? For some contracts, it is forever, right? I don't encourage that. I wouldn't recommend that as an inventor relations person to an inventor, right? I try to run best way, the way I would want to be approached as an inventor, because I am an inventor. I've definitely been on both sides, and we all inventor relations people are both on your side and advocating for you internally, right? So when we take your item, we go internally and we're like, this item is great. I love this item. I think we should do this item, right? But they're also employed by the company. So let's remember that, as friendly as I am, as friendly as anyone is. And the company is going to give them direction, right? So my boss is going to tell me, hey, I like that item too, but I'm lukewarm on it. So I'm willing to go this high or this place or whatever. And we take our direction, and none of it is personal, right? So just remember that if somebody says no to your item, they're not saying no to you. They're just saying that item isn't great for me. You can ask for feedback. They can give you feedback, but honestly, it's not getting the feedback at that point is not going to get the item into that place.
Right.
Oftentimes it maybe isn't, you know, if they take your item in and play test it, they owe you feedback, right? Not actually owe, but as a courtesy, if they've taken your item internally to play test it, they owe you feedback. In a meeting where you're presenting an item, it's kind of unheard of, kind of not done, where you ask for feedback on every item, right? The ones that you're presenting and they say no to. That was just a skip out from the contract. Going back to the contract. So all of these things you're going to negotiate. If it's your first contract and you feel like, man, this item is going to retail for $20, right? They probably sold it to the retailer for $8.50, $9. The retailer marked it up to $19.99, right?
Mhm.
They probably made it for half of that, right? $4.50, $5. There's $4 in profit on that item, on a $20 item. And this is not your problem. This is the company's problem. But every percentage that comes out of that $4, right,
Mhm.
is less profit. So they've got G&A, general and administrative overhead. So that comes out, right? It could be up to 30% of that product, right? So now we got 20% left to divide up. They give you your percentage, and then they take the rest of the percentage and it goes to the company. So the company is not making money on the $20 that we pay at retail, right? The retailer's making the spread there. The company is making on the difference between what they produce the item for and what they sell it to the retailer for. The most profitable items for a company are those that they sell on their own e-commerce site. Even Amazon takes a considerable percentage out. If you're a vendor selling directly to Amazon, it acts like a Target or a Walmart. If you're a person selling FBA, there's warehousing, there's shipping, there's pack out, there's all these things that come out of there, right? So when you're imagining like how much money you're going to make, right? This is just taking your whole thing further, right? Just trying to really expand it out for you, teach you to fish. If I'm selling a $20 item, right? The company's making 4 on that, right? You're still getting net on what they sold it to, right? So let's say they sold it to the company for $8, right? So I have to break out a calculator for this. Math is, you know, we're frenemies, me and math. So we're selling it for $8. That means we get $1.60, the inventor, on every item.
Right.
If they sell 20,000 units, which is quite a number, right? Then we're getting what? $20,000, right? A little bit more, 21,000. Let's do that math. $1.60 times 20,000, $32,000 on an item that sold for $20, right? So if we take $20 and we times it by 20,000, that's 400,000, right? So it operates a little bit like that, right? So as you're negotiating that contract, if you start to think about how much you can afford to pay a lawyer, that's why I love the advance checks. Those help me to do those things. Those help me to cover the expenses of the prototype. Those help me to pay a lawyer, right? So I say, oh, I've negotiated in advance. I can afford to pay $500 for this lawyer. I'm paying it up front, but I know I'm going to recoup that in my advance check, right? For me, that's where that goes. When you're discussing contracts, just like anything, right? You're thinking about, you may not be, but you should be thinking about, this is a business, right? And so I want somebody who's in the business of negotiating contracts helping me. I can advise you because I've seen a lot of them and I've been doing this for a long time, but I am not the person I would ask to advise me. I don't ask myself to advise me about contracts. I hire a lawyer. So why would you hire me if I'm also hiring a lawyer?
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to answer questions like I just did, but I don't think you should sign a contract based on my advice alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I
No.
think, Wesley, did you have one last question before we wrap up? I know your hand was raised for quite some time. I wasn't sure if you left it up by accident.
Yeah, no, it was up by accident. I've got more here than I can digest.
You're in good company. Yeah, Ed, this was really, really incredible. So valuable. So many concrete examples and details and information. It's essentially like a study guide for us at this point. So thank you so much. I see Tryman said, I'm going to probably be watching the replay of this 4 times at minimum.
That's awesome.
Tryman, you're not alone. I feel exactly the same. So Ed, this was
Definitely do that.
absolutely, I mean, there is so much here. And yeah, let's do this once a month because this was amazing. And I think we just started to scrape the surface. There's so much more I would love to get into, and I know everyone else would love to get into as well. But for now, you know, I want everyone, let's give Ed our thanks, and then I'll have a couple announcements of the Innovators Roundtable. But again, Ed, what a great session. This has been really, really helpful. And I really hope this generosity that you showed us is returned to you, because this is just
Thank you.
such a gift.
Everyone here, if you're not connected to me, I put my link in there, but please connect to me on LinkedIn. I love being in the inventor community, you know, whether I'm in the inventor relations or the inventor side. And if you or someone you know has a great idea, I put the link for that in the site as well. And you guys, it's been fun for me. I'm happy to come back at a later time if you guys think
that would be so great. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
again, thank you. And we really look forward to seeing where your journey takes you now that you're, sort of out of the board game and the sort of, hardware toys. I don't know how you would describe it compared to the flotation devices. It should be really interesting to see if your personal inventions go in a different direction, or you just sort of take off with those even more. So please keep us posted. We would love to support you and celebrate your accomplishments with you.
Thank you. That's nice. I'm only going to ever do board games.
Okay.
Because I've done so many other products for so many other companies, and board games is like people who build models on the weekend. For me, it's my relaxation.
That's so cool. That's your meditation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. Okay, so we are quite over the hour, and everyone is thrilled. You can take a peek at the chat box there, Ed. But while you do that, and you can hop off if you need to, just a couple notes on the Innovators Roundtable. Thank you so much to everyone that's participated in the poll so far. We have 8 options for future programming. If you're interested in helping us, craft our offerings, please go into the Innovators Roundtable LinkedIn page and support the ideas that you're interested in. We will definitely have a copywriter joining us in the next month, so keep an eye out for that. But most immediately, we will be having a session on Wednesday, March 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be featuring Kate Garcia and Tony Varda, who are both professionals in the health industry and first-time product licensors. So they have a health and wellness item and a child safety item. So we'll do a side-by-side comparison on their licensing journey, and it should be really interesting and help illustrate the very diverse and drastic paths people can take to get their product licensed, similar to our previous session that we had with Chad and Ersan. Also in March, I'm going to introduce a little trial run of a Thursday night standing session. So from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to try to accommodate more of our Central and West Coast members till 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have a come chat, hang out, share your progress, go over anything you've learned that week, and it'll be great. We did an impromptu one last week, and it was so informative and inspirational, and I can't wait to do it again. So keep an eye out for that. And then, and thank you so much to everyone that joined last week, and thank you everyone that joined tonight. This is such an incredible community that wouldn't be possible without your participation. So for everybody that's joining us from abroad, especially, please know I haven't forgotten about you. I am still working to try to come up with a great time that would suit all of you better, so that you're not, losing sleep to be here, because we want to hear from you, and we really appreciate your contributions. And I think that's it. Just a reminder, stay in the loop, go to the Innovators Roundtable, because the LinkedIn notification system doesn't always work very well. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's so wonderful to see all of you again. Thank you to the new folks that joined us tonight. Again, welcome back to the familiar faces. Nice to see you again, dudes, and welcome Patty and Ed. What a night, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight on that note, and thank you a million times for being part of this with us.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night, everybody. Take good care.
Night,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much,
Bye. Thank
Jennifer.
you.
Good night. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thanks,
Night.
Doris. Bye, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for being with us. Bye, Tremont. I hope that, I know that was helpful for you too.
Yes, definitely. I love it.
So great.
Have a
Every
great
bit
week,
of it.
everybody.
Yes, take good care, Scott. Bye, Norman. Bye, Keith. Bye, Ian.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Leo.
Jen.
Bye. You're welcome. You're welcome, of course. Bye, Ken.
Bye-bye.
I forget anybody.
Hi, Jennifer. A quick word.
Hi, Wolfie. What's up?
I was late because the old link was prominently still on there, and I tried for quite a while to do
Oh,
that.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay with me. I'll watch the replay like you 4 times, but
Yeah.
it might be that other people had that issue.
I imagine that's possible. I did try to update it in all of the newer posts, so I don't know if you looked at an older post.
I don't probably
Okay.
did. I'm not blaming you. I appreciate you very
No,
much, all you're doing.
I know you do, and I appreciate you as well, and I appreciate that information. That's helpful to know. Like I said, I did try to update it on all the more recent posts, so
Yeah.
it's possible if somebody was just hanging on to one of the older posts, it wasn't updated, but I did try to change it. Keith, did you have that issue as well?
That was me too. That's why I was late coming in. I just wasn't paying attention with the
Oh,
dates.
no. All right. Well,
My fault. I apologize.
no, it's my fault. I'm still learning how to navigate the Zoom and LinkedIn and all of that. And
No
I did
worries.
try my best, but
No,
I'm so
no
sorry.
worries. No worries. You're good.
I feel I'm apologizing and in fact to the people that aren't here, because I know there were so many people that RSVP'd and we only saw a fraction of them here tonight. So I imagine many of them maybe had the same issue, unfortunately. So with that note, it'll be a good excuse to bring Ed back on.
Well, you know, the other thing is you're doing the recording and the replay,
That's
and
true.
that's really valuable, you know, especially
Yes.
for people who are way out at the end of the other end of the world. So anyway.
Yes.
Right.
Speaking
All
of
right.
which, let me close
Thank you.
this.